Okay, and the second TED Talk I watched was From Invisible to Visible by Maria. I love this one. I really thought it rang true, and I really, again, there are a few things that stuck out to me that I wanted to discuss, and I typed up. So the first thing was a little background that the news was on all the time in her Chicago home. The radio was on all the time. Her family was a Mexican immigrant family growing up in Chicago in the civil rights era, which is hard enough in itself. Her dad was studying like ear canal stuff relating to doctors, and he spoke English with a very, very thick Mexican accent, but he watched Meet the Press every Sunday, read Time magazine, and he watched the Today Show every week. As a little girl, she understood the importance of journalism and the media, especially growing up around her father always doing things related to media. But she never saw herself there. Her stories didn't appear. She felt invisible. No one looked like her. No one looked like her family. And this made Maria feel like her story, her life was less valuable and less important. Then one day she saw Martin Luther King Jr. speaking and read some of his articles and some of his speeches. And there he was, this person who looked unlike her and unlike the norm, made her believe and think that maybe one day she could be a part of the fabric that makes this country. She said two things that stuck out to me. I didn't understand this invisibility, I just lived it. And she said, I came to see myself and feel myself as the other. And I think that at some point in our lives, everyone can relate to this. Everyone feels invisible in one way or another, and we can all understand how that feels and why she wouldn't want to feel that way and why she would want to change that. When she moved to New York, she created a radio show about the influx of Latinos and Mexican Americans, whether they were documented or undocumented, in New York. She was living and experiencing these things that she has never heard before on the media. She's the first Latina in many newsrooms, but forced herself to raise her hand to include her perspective in the media narrative. She chose stories other reporters wouldn't do because she felt the responsibility to do so. She ended by saying, one of the last things she said was, when she thinks back to that little girl in Chicago, she would draw herself as striding forward and pulling away the layers of invisibility. And I really enjoyed Maria's story about how we needed to change that narrative and of primarily white people in the news, because America isn't just white people. America is so much more than that. And when people aren't seeing themselves in the news, of course they're going to feel invisible. And I really, really liked, I could relate to this, not from the same perspective that Maria could as a Mexican-American woman, but as just someone who has felt invisible before, I could relate to this.